Students, welcome to my live teaching learning session of Principles of Microeconomics BECC 131 Part 6. Today we will discuss about this new topic, utility analysis and theory of consumer behavior. Utility analysis has two approaches. One is cardinal utility analysis and second is ordinal utility analysis. Utility means want satisfying power or it means want satisfying capacity. Utility concept was firstly introduced by new classical economists like Dupuit, Gossain, Walras, Menger, and Jevons in 19th century. But in 20th century, Marshall and Pigou further elaborated this cardinal utility analysis. So, utility analysis was mainly famous or popularized by Marshall. Cardinal concept of utility suggests measurement of utility in terms of definite numbers or in accurate numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4. According to Dr. Marshall, utility can be measured in terms of money. And what is utility? Utility is want satisfying power. Generally, utility belongs to us. It is an internal feeling. When we get satisfaction from the consumption of any commodity, then we get utility. But utility can't express in exact numbers. Because when we are thirsty and we take water, then how can we express what unit we get from the consumption of water? Yeah, if we take chapati when we are hungry, then chapati will give us satisfaction. It means chapati has utility. But how much utility we derive from that commodity, from the consumption of chapati? How can we measure it? So, Marshall suggested that utility can be measured in terms of money or in definite numbers like 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is cardinal concept of utility, which is introduced by so many economics, new classical economics, but further in 20th century popularized by Marshall and people. Second approach of utility is ordinal concept of utility. Ordinal concept of utility was introduced by J.R. Hicks and R.G.D. Allen. This concept suggests that utility can't be measured in accurate or definite numbers. We can give only ranks according to our preferences. These are the two approaches of utility. One is cardinal, other is ordinal. This is very important topic of consumer behavior, utility analysis. Now next is what is the difference between cardinal and ordinal utility and why we are studying about this type of utility. Cardinal utility and ordinal utility, as we have discussed in this first unit, that cardinal utility is and ordinal utility is both are the two approaches of utility analysis. One is cardinal utility. It explains that the satisfaction level after consuming terms of accurate number or countable numbers. But the ordinal utility explains the satisfaction after consuming a good or service can't be measured or can't be scaled in numbers. However, Numbers. Some facts are based on qualitative factors. And qualitative factors are those factors which can't be measured in terms of money or in accurate numbers, like beautifulness of any person or patriotic feelings of any person, and love and affection of the mother, and any type of like honesty can't be measured in accurate numbers. Some facts are that type of facts which can't be measured, which are not quantitatively, which can't be expressed in numeric terms. So how can we measure it? Ordinal utility suggests us that those variables which can't be measured in accurate number, that can be arranged in the order of preferences. We can give ranks according to our preferences. For example, of cardinal utility, if Sam submits pizza, gives him 60 utils of satisfaction. Pizza give satisfaction to Sam 60 utils. Utils is the measuring unit of utility. As you know that distance is measured by kilometer, and milk is measured in terms of liter. Cloth is measured in terms of meter. Same as utility can also be measured in terms of utils. So util is the measuring unit of utility. So if Sam, for example, Sam submits pizza, pizza gives him what 60 utils of satisfaction. We can measure it by paying 60 rupees of pizza on pizza, and burger give him only 40 utils. If Sam spent 60 rupees on pizza and 40 rupees on burger, then we can get satisfaction, and we can measure satisfaction, that how much money we spent on that commodity. We can get satisfaction or utility by spending units of money. We can measure it. But in ordinal utility, Sam can't compare, ठीक है, in exact number. Sam submit, he gets more satisfaction from pizza as compared to the burger, but he can't measure in accurate numbers. So ordinal utility always suggests us that we can give rank according to our preferences, but can't measure it in accurate numbers. Third point is utility is measured on the basis of utils, and utility is ranked on the basis of satisfaction. This tells us ordinal utility. Next is cardinal utility is less practical because we can't measure our utility, our satisfaction level in accurate numbers. But Marshall suggests that utility can be measured. So Marshall gave the concept of cardinal utility, but J.R. Hicks tells us that utility can't be measured in terms of money. We can give only ranks according to our preferences. So ordinal utility concept, which was given by J.R. Hicks and R.G.D. Allen, is more practical and sensible. Next is this theory was applied by Professor Marshall, and ordinal utility theory was applied by J.R. Hicks and R.G.D. Allen. Cardinal utility, another name is utility analysis. And the other name of ordinal utility is indifference curve analysis. This is the basic difference between cardinal and ordinal utility, which we will discuss in this unit. Now, what is cardinal utility analysis? First, we discuss about cardinal utility analysis. In this, first of all, you have to know about what is utility. Utility refers to want satisfying power of a commodity. As you know that when we consume any commodity for the satisfaction of our want, we get satisfaction. and that satisfaction is called utility. Fisher has used the term util as a measure of utility. Utility only refers to satisfaction. It may or may not be useful. It means utility only tells us how much satisfaction we derive from the consumption of that particular commodity. But utility can't tell us that that thing is useful or harmful for us or not. For example, if a person is smoker, then smoking gives satisfaction to smoker, but it is not good for the health. So we can say that smoking gives satisfaction. It means smoking has utility to smoker, but it is not good for the health. It means any commodity which give you satisfaction, that commodity has utility. Either it is useful for you or harmful for you. It doesn't matter. Utility tells us only the level of satisfaction, the level of want satisfying power. Utility has two aspects. One is total utility and other is marginal utility. Now, total utility, what is total utility and what is marginal utility, and how these two types of utility, total and marginal, are interrelated with each other. Total utility, with a clear from its name, total, it means total utility. Utility is want satisfying power and total is aggregate or entire. Total utility is the entire or aggregate of utilities obtained from the consumption of a commodity. If we consume any commodity, then we get satisfaction. For example, if we take 6 chapatis in a day, then if we add all the satisfaction level which we get from the consumption of first chapati, then second chapati, then third, then fourth, and fifth and sixth. And if we add all the satisfaction which we derive from the consumption of chapati in a day, then we can get total utility. It means total utility is the entire satisfaction or entire aggregates of utility obtained from the consumption of a commodity. Now, marginal utility is the net change or addition in total utility by the consumption of one more unit of commodity. For example, if we take one chapati, then total utility is 10. And if we take another, it means number 2 chapati, then total utility we can get 15. Then what is the net change in this utility? It means if we add one more additional chapati, then our total utility will change from 10 units to 15 units. The net change which occur in total utility is 15 minus 10 is equals to 5. So marginal utility is net change or addition in total utility by consuming one more unit of commodity. Next is marginal utility may be positive, may be zero or negative, but total utility can't be negative. You should remember this thing that marginal utility may be positive, may be zero, and may be negative. But total utility can't be negative. Because if we consume any commodity, then definitely we get satisfaction. Otherwise, we will not take that commodity. If any commodity gives us satisfaction, then we consume it. If any commodity don't give us any satisfaction level, then we will not consume it. So total utility can't be negative. Total utility may be zero when you are not consuming any commodity, then your satisfaction will be zero. But after the consumption of any commodity, you will get satisfaction. So total utility always remains positive, not zero, not negative. Zero only. What is the formula? Change in total utility divided by change in quantity MU. MU denotes marginal utility. Delta TU we can write in another form, delta TU upon delta Q. Delta is change. Delta represent change in total utility and delta Q represent change in quantity of a commodity. Can be explained with the help of table and diagram. Total utility, as we have discussed, that total utility is the entire or aggregate utility which we obtain from the consumption of a commodity. And marginal utility is the net addition or net change in total utility by adding one more additional unit of any commodity. For example, here number of chocolates are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is 10. By the consumption of second chocolate, we will get 18. Third unit of chocolate. By adding one more additional unit of chocolate, like 4, total utility will be 24. And on fifth chocolate, total utility will be 24. It means it remains constant. And after, if we consume again and again number of chocolates, like 6 number, then in the beginning, total utility will always increase. Then total utility will become maximum. 24 is maximum here. And after that, if we consume another more units of chocolate or any other thing, then at the last, total utility start falling. How we can get MU? MU is the difference of TU. At the first unit of chocolate, TU is 10, so MU will be 10. When we take number 2 unit of chocolate, then TU is 18. Then what is the difference between TU and TU? Number 1 and number 2 is 18 minus 10 is equals to 8. So marginal utility will be 8. And next marginal utility will be 22 minus 18 is equals to 4. So MU will be 4. And in at the number of fourth number of chocolate, then total utility is 24 and the difference between TU is 2. 24 minus 22, 2. Next is 5 units of chocolate. Total utility is constant or maximum 24. 24 difference is 0. It means in the beginning marginal utility is positive, then marginal utility is 0, and when TU start falling, then MU becomes negative. So this is clear from this table that TU and MU both are interrelated with each other. When TU increases, then MU remains positive. When TU becomes maximum, then MU becomes 0. When TU start falling, then MU becomes negative. So TU and MU curve begin at the same point because when the first unit of chocolate TU is 10, the marginal utility will also remain same like 10. So we can draw diagram with the help of this table. On x-axis, we will take number of chocolates, and on y-axis, we can show total utility and marginal utility. As we have discussed in this table that number 1 chocolate TU is 10, MU is also 10, so point is same. Then second number of chocolate TU is 18 and MU is 8, so TU curve will begin to increase and MU curve start falling. TU is increases at the unit of 24, and then again at the unit of fifth TU is 24, it means TU will become maximum or constant, and after that TU start falling. But MU curve is always downward sloping curve, or it may be zero and may be negative. When MU curve touches to x-axis, it means here MU is 0. Like at 5 units of chocolate, MU is 0. And at 6 unit of chocolate, MU becomes negative. MU can be 0, can be negative, but TU can't be negative. TU always start from above point of the origin and increases. After that, it becomes maximum, and at last it start falling. So TU and MU curve begin at the same point. The TU curve slopes upward from left to right, and MU curve slopes downward from left to right. This is the relationship between TU and MU. Next is, which is very important in utility analysis, here two laws mentioned by Gaussian. First law of Gaussian is law of diminishing marginal utility. And this law is always universal law. It is always not in any particular country. It is a universal phenomena, law of diminishing marginal utility applicable to all. What is the law of diminishing marginal utility? The law of diminishing marginal utility states that marginal utility tends to decline as consumption of commodity increases. This law explains that when you consume more and more units of any commodity continuously, then your satisfaction level will always decline. Because if you are thirsty, then you will take one glass of water and it will give you maximum satisfaction. After that, if you consume another second glass of water, your satisfaction will decline. And again, if you take more and more glass of water continuously, you are taking that, your satisfaction level will fall, it will be negative. So if you consume any commodity continuously without any break, without taking any time lag, or if you are taking any commodity in proper units, then your satisfaction, which you derive from the consumption of that commodity, will definitely fall. So, marginal utility curve will always become downward sloping from left to right. It can be zero and it can be negative. So, diminishing marginal utility only applicable in case of single commodity. If you consume single commodity continuously in a proper unit, like if you are taking tea, so you have to take tea, full cup of tea, not you can take tea from spoon. If you take tea from spoon, it will give you satisfaction. Again and again you will get satisfaction by taking it by spoon. But if you take full cup of tea again and again continuously without any time lag, then your satisfaction always decline. So this is explained by law of diminishing marginal utility. Okay, if you consume one commodity continuously without any time lag, without any break, then your satisfaction definitely will fall. Marginal utility curve, as you know, that always downward sloping. So diminishing marginal utility curve will always downward sloping, and mu can be zero, can be negative. Next is the most important topic of this unit is derivation. Derivation, how you can derive demand curve with the help of law of diminishing marginal utility. So to derive the demand curve based on the law of diminishing marginal utility, we measure the marginal utility of a commodity in terms of money. As Marshall said, this logic of consumer equilibrium in the case of a single good provides a fitting basis for the derivation of the individual demand curve for a commodity. As you know that the down demand curve is always downward sloping curve. Demand curve shows negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. And diminishing marginal utility curve also downward sloping curve, which shows negative relationship between number of units of any commodity and the satisfaction which you derive from that commodity, which can be measured by marginal utility, is always falling. As well as you increase the unit of any commodity, your satisfaction will decline. So marginal utility is always diminishing, and marginal utility which is diminishing is the main cause of downward sloping curve of demand curve. Marginal utility curve, if you want to derive demand curve with the help of marginal utility curve, then you must have to draw these two diagrams simultaneously at the same side. Like if you draw one marginal utility curve, then in front of that, you must have to draw demand curve. Because this is the derivation. Derivation shows us that how we can derive demand curve with the help of marginal utility curve. The logic is different in both the curves, but the slope of both the curves are same. In marginal utility curve, the logic is that as well as you increase the number of units of any commodity, your satisfaction will decline. And in case of demand curve, as well as price falls, demand increases. And due to rise in price, demand falls. Demand curve slope is also each other. Both concepts are interrelated, so we can derive demand curve with the help of marginal utility curve. First of all, we will draw marginal utility curve and then join mu1 to p1, mu2 to p2, mu3 to p3. And as you know that price and demand are always inversely related. So if at higher price, quantity will be less, at lower price, quantity will be higher, and at lower price, which is P3, then quantity will demand curve with the help of diminishing marginal utility curve. Next is, what is utility maximization principle? I have told you that there are two laws which are called the law of Gaussian. First is law of diminishing marginal utility, which is the first law of Gaussian, and second law is law of equi-marginal utility. This is called the second law of Gaussian. This law of equi-marginal utility is applicable when you are consuming more than one commodity. As we have discussed, that law of diminishing marginal utility tells us only in case of single commodity, if we consume only single commodity, then as well as we increase the number of units of commodity, our satisfaction will decline. That law is applicable only in case of single commodity. But law of equi-marginal utility is based on several commodities. If we consume more than one commodity simultaneously, then the satisfaction which we want to derive from the consumption of that commodity should be equal. This law states, according to R.G. Lipsey, the household maximizing its utility will allocate his expenditures between commodities in such a way that the utility of last penny spent on each is equal. Every consumer will substitute the more useful for the less useful thing. This is a very natural thing because every consumer want to gain more rather than less. Because this is the mentality of the consumer. Consumer wants to gain more bundle of goods rather than less bundle of goods. This law is also known as the law of substitution or law of Gaussian, second law of Gaussian. It is called the law of equi-marginal utility because it is only law by which the marginal utilities have been equalized through the process of substitution. This law can be explained with the help of following schedule. Assuming that consumer has 5 rupees and he want to spend this 5 rupees on two commodities like apple and orange. Next is, this is the table total utility and marginal utility. If we assume that consumer is spending 9 rupees on two goods, for example, marginal utility of commodity A is given, marginal utility of commodity B is given in this table. As we are watching here that commodity A is giving us more satisfaction like 32 and commodity B is giving less satisfaction which is 28. First of all, we want to consume that commodity which gives us maximum level of satisfaction. So consumer will spend 1 rupee, first rupee on A commodity because satisfaction is 32. Second rupee, consumer will spend on B commodity, satisfaction is 28. Third rupee will be spent by consumer on A commodity, 28. Then B commodity, 24. Then A commodity again, 24 satisfaction. If you have 9 rupees, then you can spend in such a way. And if you spend 6 rupee on B commodity, 7 rupee on A commodity, 8 rupee on B commodity, and 9 rupee on A commodity. Now your satisfaction will be equal like 16, 16. Both are equal. Here if you add these things like 32 plus 28 plus 24 plus 20 plus 16 and MU of commodity B 28 plus 24 plus 20 plus 16. If you add all these, here we are assuming that you have 9 rupees and how you can spend. First of all, you will see that which commodity will give you maximum satisfaction. You will spend your money on that commodity. After that on another commodity which will give you maximum satisfaction. Same as in this way, you can spend your entire money on two commodities till your satisfaction will be maximum. In this case, your satisfaction will definitely be maximum and equal also because at 5 units of commodity, marginal utility of commodity is 16 and marginal utility of commodity B is 16. 16 is equals to 16. So here's marginal utility of A commodity is equals to marginal utility of B commodity. Consumer equilibrium in case of several commodities are MUX upon PX is equals to MUY upon PY is equals to MUM. It means marginal utility of X commodity divided by price of X commodity is equals to marginal utility of Y commodity is equal upon my price of Y commodity should be equal to marginal utility of money. This is the formula of consumer equilibrium in case of several commodities. And we can express this consumer equilibrium with the help of this diagram. Here, marginal utility curve is downward, MUX curve. If we draw two diagrams simultaneously, one diagram shows MUX upon PX and another diagram which is uh, at the right side of us which shows MUY upon PY. One is left hand side curve and another is right hand side curve. Right hand side curve shows MUY upon PY and left hand side curve shows MUX upon PX. Both are downward sloping. They both curve intersect each other. Consumer is in equilibrium position. And here we are explaining that consumer is getting satisfaction from the consumption of several goods or more than one commodity. Next is, what is the importance of law of equimarginal utility? Why we study this law of equimarginal utility? As we have discussed here, that law of equimarginal utility tells us that if consumer is consuming more than one commodity, then consumer can get maximum satisfaction by both the commodities in such a way that consumer will spend his entire money income in this way on both goods, so their satisfaction level will become maximum. So this law is very practical. The application of the principle of substitution extends over almost every field of economic inquiry. Second thing is, every consumer, as you know that every consumer want to gain maximum satisfaction. So consumer want is to do to get maximum satisfaction. Every consumer consciously trying to get the maximum satisfaction from his limited resources acts upon this principle of substitution. Same is the case with the producer. Producer want to gain maximum production, maximum output at the minimum cost. So this law explain behavior of consumer, how consumer get maximum satisfaction from the consumption of both goods. Next topic, which is related with utility analysis, which is based on cardinal utility analysis, is diamond water paradox. This diamond water paradox, this concept was introduced by Adam Smith. Adam Smith, as you know, that father of economics, who introduced economics in 1776, that economics is a science which deals with money. According to Adam Smith, why water is so cheap and diamond is so costly? Adam Smith gave the puzzle of this, give answer of this question, why water is cheap and diamond is so costly. As we know that water is very useful for us. Without water, we can't survive. But it is available at cheaper rate. And diamond, which is not useful, which has no use in our life. Without diamond, our life can easily go on. But diamond is available at very higher price. So what is the reason behind this? Adam Smith tells us that nothing is more useful than water, but it will purchase scarcely anything. Those goods, it means here we can discuss this topic with the help of total utility and marginal utility concepts. The utility of water is more than diamond. It means total utility of water is more than the total utility of diamond. But the price is determined by marginal utility or the utility which is in exchange the value which is the exchange for that commodity. As you know that at 70% of this land area, water is abundant, water is available everywhere, 70% land area is covered with water. So water is not scarce, water is easily available. That's why water uh, has less exchange value and water is available at cheaper rate. But diamond is very rare. Diamond is very limited. So diamond has very high exchange value. That's why diamond has high marginal utility so that its price is higher. It means it is clear from this discussion that those goods which are abundant available, that commodities price will be lower, and those things which are very rarely or scarcely available in the market or in the economy or in the world, and the high value of exchange, it means the price of that commodity will be higher. That's why diamond is so costly and water is so cheap. This paradox can be explained with the help of total utility and marginal utility. And concept was given by Adam Smith, father of economics. Next is the next topic which is related with cardinal utility analysis is consumer surplus. The concept of consumer surplus was also introduced by Marshall. This concept was refined or popularized by Marshall, Alfred Marshall. This concept is based on law of diminishing marginal utility. Consumer surplus tells us that what amount consumer is willing to pay and how much he actually pay. Consumer surplus is the difference between what a person is willing to pay and what he actually pays. If consumer is interested to pay higher price, then and actual price in the market is lower, then consumer will get surplus. Each and every consumer can get surplus, but only at that time when consumer is willing to pay more but actually pay less. If consumer is willing to pay 10 rupee and the market price is also 10 rupee, then consumer surplus will be 0. But if consumer is willing to pay 12 rupees and the price of that commodity is 10 rupee, then 2 rupees consumer surplus. So consumer surplus can be explained with the help of this table and diagram. If we show that units are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and marginal utility is always diminishing, as you know that, as well as we increase the number of units of any commodity, marginal utility start falling. So here MU is 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. And price of units which consumer is willing to pay is 10, which actually pay 10, 10, 10. This is the price of the unit which is constant. And marginal utility is 50. 50 minus 10 is 40. Consumer surplus will be 40. If consumer is willing to pay 40 and the actual price is 10, then consumer surplus will be 30. If consumer is willing to pay 30 and the actual price is 10, then surplus will be 20. When consumer is willing to pay 20 and the actual price is 10, then surplus will be 10. And if consumer is interested to pay 10 rupee and actual price is also 10 rupee, then in that case consumer surplus will be 0. So consumer surplus we can show with this help of diagram. Marginal utility curve, as you know that downward sloping. So MU curve will be downward sloping, and we assume that market price is 10 rupee which is constant, and the above area which lies from the equilibrium point, this above shaded area shows consumer surplus. Here consumer is interested to pay more but actually pay less. Then consumer surplus can be derived. Now, this was the topic which you have done now, that was cardinal utility analysis. Now, next topic is ordinal utility. Ordinal utility is also related with utility analysis, but it tells us that utility can't be measured in terms of money. It can give, we can give only ranks according to our preferences. So different product combinations may be viewed as having same utility. Ordinal utility concept was introduced by G.R. Hicks and R.G.D. Allen. And these combinations of same utility consist of one indifference curve. Here IC is indifference curve. As it is clear by its name, indifference. Difference means there is a difference in anything. It means if there is a difference or paradox in anything, that is called difference. But indifference means there is no difference. So indifference curve shows that if you are consuming two units, two commodities of anything, then your satisfaction level remain constant and you will get same level of satisfaction. Indifference curve can be explained with the help of table and diagram. Indifference curve shows, first of all, indifference schedule shows, your indifference curve definition shows the different combinations of two goods that gives us same level of satisfaction. For example, here different combinations are like A, B, C, D, E, and consumer is consuming two goods like biscuits and bananas. If consumer is taking 1 unit of biscuit, he can buy 12 units of bananas. And B combination is showing that 2 units of biscuits, 8 units of bananas. C combination is showing 3 units of biscuits, 5 units of bananas, as well as the number of biscuits increases like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The units of banana is falling 12, 8, 5, 3, 2. So each and every combination give us same level of satisfaction. Indifference curve theory is based on two goods. And these two goods are consumer goods, not producer goods. Indifference curve shows different combinations of two goods that gives same level of satisfaction to the consumer. It means if consumer chooses A combination, then he will be indifferent towards B, C, D or E. If consumer opt B combination, then consumer will be indifferent towards A, C, D and E. Because each and every combination like 1, 12, 2, 8, 3, 5, 4, 3, 5, 2, each combination is giving same level of satisfaction to the consumer. So indifference curve theory is based on two goods that gives us same level of satisfaction. Indifference curve is always downward sloping curve from left to right. Its slope is always convex, depends upon diminishing marginal rate of substitution. Here you are seeing in this table that as well as we increase the number of units biscuits 1, 2, 3. Here the unit of biscuit is increasing by 1, 1, 1. But the unit of banana we are sacrificing. First we have sacrificed 4 units of banana, then 3 units of banana, then 2 units of banana, then 1 unit of banana. It means the falling or sacrificing ratio is 4, 3, 2, 1. And the ratio will be 4:1 because biscuit is increasing by same rate. So ratio will be 4:1, 3:1, 2:1 and 1:1. So this rate is marginal rate of substitution, which is always diminishing. That's why IC curve slopes always downward from left to right. Next, properties of indifference curve. Indifference curve, there are so many properties of indifference curve which is called features or characteristics of indifference curve. First of all, indifference curve is always downward sloping curve from left to right, as you have seen in that diagram in earlier previous slide. And next is non-intersecting. Indifference curve can never intersect each other because if they intersect each other, it will give us inconsistent result. So indifference curve never intersect each other. And third is indifference curve is always convex to the origin due to the reason of diminishing marginal rate of substitution. Marginal rate of substitution, if it is diminishing, then curve will be convex. If marginal rate of substitution is increasing, then curve will be concave. And if marginal rate of substitution is constant, then curve will be a constant line or straight line. Next is curvature of indifference curve. Generally, indifference curve is always convex to the origin, but sometimes its shapes may be different. In There are some exceptions of the shape of indifference curve. If goods are perfectly substitutable, as you know that substitute goods are those goods which can use in place of each other, like tea or coffee. If goods are perfectly substitutable, then consumer can substitute one good for another. In this case, indifference curve will be a straight line curve. And in case matlab not convex to the origin, in case of perfect substitute good, indifference curve slope is downward and it will be a straight line curve. In this case, marginal rate of substitution will be 0. And in case of perfectly complementary goods, as you know that complementary goods are those goods which are always used together. For example, car and petrol, pen and refill, needle and thread, camera and reel. In this case, indifference curve shape will be L-shaped curve on 90-degree angle. Here, a simple diagram is showing that indifference curve is downward sloping. Downward sloping means convex to the origin. So this is the main indifference curve which has convex to the origin or downward slope. And if you are showing so much indifference curve like I1, I2, I3, if we show group of indifference curve or family of indifference curve, that is called indifference map. And in second diagram, straight line indifference curve we have drawn here. So this type of diagram, which is straight line, it shows perfect substitute goods. Three indifference curve where goods X and Y are perfectly substitutable. The gray line perpendicular to all curves indicate that curves are mutually parallel. And figure 3 is showing that indifference curve when goods are perfectly complementary, which always used together. If you increase the unit of good X, then you must have to increase the unit of good Y, because both goods are together you can use only. So in this case, indifference curve shape is different. In case of perfect substitute, indifference curve shape is different. And in case of complementary goods, indifference shape is different, L-shaped curve. Generally, indifference curve is always convex to the origin, but in case of substitute goods, it will be a straight line curve. And in case of complementary goods, it will be a L-shaped curve or 90-degree angle curve. Next is consumer equilibrium. You have done consumer equilibrium in case of law of equimarginal utility or several goods. But if you want to show consumer equilibrium with the help of indifference curve, then how you can show it? So this is the diagram from which you can show consumer equilibrium. According to indifference curve approach, which is based on ordinal utility analysis, consumer can be at the equilibrium situation when indifference curve tangent to the budget line. Here M line, LM or any AM line is budget line, which is straight line downward sloping curve. And indifference curve is always convex to the origin or downward sloping curve from left to right. Here, three IC curve has drawn. One is IC1, IC2, IC3. But IC2 is tangent to the budget line at point E. So E point is the consumer equilibrium point where consumer gets maximum satisfaction. Actually, consumer equilibrium shows how consumer can get maximum satisfaction, and where consumer get maximum satisfaction, at that point consumer is in equilibrium position. He don't want to go beyond that equilibrium point. So consumer equilibrium can be determined with the help of indifference curve and budget line. First of all, we will draw budget line, which is straight or downward sloping line. Indifference curve, which is always convex to the origin, where the slope of indifference curve is equals to the slope of budget line. Consumer equilibrium will be determined. Here, two conditions must lie when you are showing consumer equilibrium with the help of indifference curve. The first condition is marginal rate of substitution is equal to the ratio of price of two goods यानी कि MRS XY is equals to price of X upon price of Y. Here MRS is showing slope of IC and PX upon PY is showing the slope of budget line. And second condition must be exist when you are showing consumer equilibrium that indifference curve must be convex to the origin, not concave to the origin. Next is decomposition of price effect into income and substitution effect. This topic is very important under the ordinal utility analysis concept. Price effect can be decomposed or split into two parts. One is income and other is substitution effect. As you know that when price increases or decreases, it affects our real income or purchasing power. If price falls, our purchasing power will increase. If price rise, our purchasing power will decrease. It will show by income effect. And if price of tea falls, then demand for coffee will also fall. If price of tea rises, then demand for coffee will rise. So this is substitution effect. So price effect can be split into two effects. One is income and other is substitution. In this diagram, here PL line is a budget line, and if we take the price of one commodity constant, only price of other commodity varies, then this budget line will rotate. Rotate in sense, budget line will rightward shift but not parallel. PL is actual budget line and PL1 is rotate in budget line, which is showing that price of Y commodity is constant, only price of X commodity is falling. Then consumer can buy more units of X commodity. And AB line is parallel to the PL1 line, which is showing income effect. So here three equilibrium points we can get. One is one indifference curve is E or E2, which is showing two equilibrium points, E and E2, and on at PL1 line, indifference curve is IC1, and here equilibrium point is E1. Here 3 points we get E, E1 and E2. The point which lies on same curve like E and E2, that shows substitution effect. And the point which is on parallel lines like AB line is parallel to PL1 line. So E2 and E1 point is showing income effect. And E1, which is rotate line, this shows price effect. So PCC line shows price effect, ICC shows income effect, and E and E2 point shows substitution effect. So price effect can be split into two effects. One is income and other is price effect. Now next is three types of goods exist in the economy like normal goods, inferior goods, given goods. Normal goods are those goods which are directly related with the level of income of the consumer. As our income increases, demand for normal goods increases. As income falls, demand for normal goods falls. Inferior goods are those goods which are negatively related with the level of our income. If our income rises, inferior goods we will purchase less and vice versa. And given goods are the exception case of law of demand. Given goods are much inferior goods and that type of good in which when price rises, demand rises, when price falls, demand falls. So you must have to remember this thing that in case of inferior good, substitution effect will be more than income effect. And in case of given goods, substitution effect will be less than income effect. And the last conclusion of this unit is you have done here two types of utility, cardinal and ordinal. Cardinal utility gives accurate measurement and ordinal utility gives you ranks. Cardinal utility is the idea that economic welfare can be directly observable and be given value For example, people may be able to express utility that consumption gives certain goods. So, this is the topic of utility analysis which you have done in this part 6. Thank you.